Welcome back to part two of my conversation with Lieutenant General Jeth Rey, the Army Deputy Chief of Staff G6. I'm Jason Miller. And in some ways, going to this unified network will include all these layers of transport, and the user, again, going back to your initial discussion, will be able to get to the data, get access how they need it, when they need it, and they won't even know why it happened. To your point, if Leo has problems, maybe we'll go to Geo. If Cellular has problems, maybe you go to a different. That's part of this end goal. This is part of this, like the crawl, walk, run piece, getting this transport to where it's all connected, it's all secure, is a huge piece to this unified network.
Yeah, so I think the transport is even a different experience, and our security measures are even different because remember, we need to collaborate with our partners. So when we look at the mission partner environment, for instance, before when I would think about it, it's like an upside down triangle is the example that I use. We wanted our partners to meet us at the top. If the triangle is upside down, we wanted them to meet us at the top. So we started big in the IL6, meaning our secure environment. Come meet us there. Today, when I think about transport, I flip it on its head and I say, hey, why can't they meet us in an unsecured environment? Because their transport can stay in the IL2 environment. And let's build our security measures from there into IL6, because not all countries are equal, right? So if you flip the triangle on its head and say, let's go broader and wider with our partners, use whatever transport they have and however they secure on their transport. And over time, the tools that we use can secure the environment in a data-centric world. And eventually we'll get to the peak of the triangle where we're all then exchanging information and collaborating in that environment, more secure and better experience across the transport.
General Rey, let me shift gears just a little bit. Another big initiative that we've heard a lot from the Army about is improving command and control and the systems that support it. I've written a lot about the next generation command and control from the G6 perspective. You guys are all focused on command and control fix, C2 fix. Talk a little bit about that and how that plays into this bigger discussion about data centricity and obviously the modernization.
Yeah, so in C2 fix, we looked at it in like three buckets, right? We looked at it as organizationally, what we needed to do was org-net convergence, get these networks down to an environment where it was manageable, and we had unified network operations so we can see it, and we have the structure to be in part of it. In the operational environment, what we're doing differently there is we're looking at moving from joint regional security stacks to a more software-defined environment. But tactically, what we worked on over time was this C2 fix, command and control fix. And it came in really three imperatives, again, from General Rainey kind of laid this out for us from Army Futures Command. He said, what a commander needs on the ground is three specific things. One, they need assured voice communication so they can talk to their subordinates and talk up at echelon. Two, they needed a common operational picture from the platoon all the way to the corps, so at echelon, when you look up at echelon. And then three, access to digital fires. Taking those three imperatives, the journey that we were on is what capabilities in the formation could make the formation more lethal, more mobile, more agile. And that's what we've been doing in the fixed environment. So we build a transport highway on the C2 fix. We gave them the capabilities that it creates a mesh environment and an ability to move data across that environment. And that alone gives us the ability to look at our next generation command and control. So we have TAC as our base that we have at brigade and below. We have JBCP, which was our joint command and control environment. And then our CPCE, which was a command post computing environment. And what we're doing there for next generation C2 is that capability is then going to build an ecosystem that is application based using AI and machine learning, and it will take over for all those C2 systems. AFATADs for our fires environment. So those are the things that next generation C2. So we're the highway. Think of us as a football field, and then we're the highway that they come onto the football field to play. Right? We provide the transport, we provide the infrastructure, they provide the plays that go up and down and move that data across, and eventually there's a touchdown in the end zone. And so that's kind of the environment that we're trying to create when it comes to C2 fix.
There's a lot to talk about around and next generation C2. Let me go back to C2 fix. The idea of the C2 fix is to take what exists today and say we got to make it better because we can't wait until we're ready to go with the next generation. So where are some of the areas that you feel like you've already made some progress that the user, going back to the user experience, already says, hey, this command and control is better than it was yesterday, last year, last week, last month?
Sure. So in that environment, we've already done 3 divisions with C2 fix. We've done the 101st, 82nd Airborne Division, and the 25th ID. And we've done several different exercises that gave us better understanding of how they were using C2 fix capabilities in there. Integrated tactical network was one of the key elements to improve the command and control fix environment. It also made the command post a lot more agile, a lot more flexible. Before, our command posts were more stagnant. They stayed in place for long periods of time. Today, our command posts can move within minutes if there were an issue to arise, because they're much lighter and much agile. And it also, in this fixed environment, what it also gave us was an ability for most of our formations to hide in plain sight. So less signature. The commanders can actually see themselves better and understand what they look like in the spectrum. And therefore, the force is a lot more protected in this environment across the board.
I think that's the key. They can move lighter, move quicker, more agile. I think my understanding of it was in the older days, there was a lot to carry, a lot heavier equipment, and to say, hey, we've got to move the command post back or forward or left or right would take a much bigger lift. And that's part of the goal here with C2 Fix is to start winnowing down the what do we really need to connect back. And that seems to be happening both, as you said, 82nd, 101st, but also with others. Where is this going next? Do you have some goals over the next year or so about, okay, how do we continue to evolve C2 Fix as we prepare for whatever NG C2 looks like?
Yeah, so one last point on that, on the C2 Fix, is that complexity actually moved up from, the battalion and the brigade really up to the division level. So the division actually is the ones that ingests a lot of the data and then pushed down to the battalions and the brigades. So that's a different way to fight. And we fought in the past at brigade combat team level. Today, the division is actually the organization of choice to be a term we used in the past was a unit of action. So the complexity has moved up. So in moving up under the unified network operations construct, we had to look at structure change. So division signal battalions are able to then absorb some of our units that were in the brigade combat teams at the division level, moving complexity there, balancing it out in order to then move that information at speed, at echelon to the lower level. So the next phase of this is standing up our division signal battalions, that structure change that is required at the division level in order for us to operate at echelon and move data at speed.
I imagine there's plenty of tests, so plenty of exercises that you'll work on this over the next year at this as well. What's the big challenge that's still ahead for you all when it comes to both C2 Fix, but also more broadly the data centricity? What are some of those big obstacles you have to say we haven't quite figured this out yet, or it's going to take a little longer than we thought?
Yeah, so one of our big obstacles coming ahead of us now is all these units that I mentioned to you are light units. a lot easier to outfit, a lot easier to test with. The next pivot is onto our tanks, our heavier units. That's where I believe we'll see a lot more of the challenge that we hadn't seen in the past. So it's going to take time to characterize those tanks and how the equipment and the power and the firing mechanism, how all those interact with each other. So I think that's going to be our bigger challenge coming when we move to the heavier platforms, even to where we're seeing it already when we go to our aerial platforms, our helicopters. Those are challenges as well, because those are the down trace units to the division, and we're seeing the complexity there already. But more so, we believe it's coming as we move to the armored division.
As you kind of look at these challenges with the heavier units, are there certain lessons that you said, okay, that worked with the lighter units, but it may not work as well? Or like, how do you bring people together to go over those lessons? I know the exercises is the one way, but as you're planning the C2 fix changes, as you're saying, hey, this approach worked well for a lighter unit, but for a heavier unit, it won't, or it may not, or we're not sure if it will. Walk me through a little bit of the governance, if you will, the approach you're doing beyond the tests and the exercise.
Yeah, so Jason, I think we did it a little differently, and I think it's working so well for us. Is the chief actually put what we call a trail boss, who has been following this from inception, has picked all the lessons learned. We have all the documentation. We do clean and really deep dives on our AARs. But that trail boss is the most important person. That trail boss stays ahead of everything. He or she goes out to the units prior to actually conducting an exercise or an operation. And that's where the training is conducted, the characterization of the capabilities are conducted, and they flush those things out early in the process. And then, subsequently, once it's on the battlefield and they're doing their experimentation, they're doing their exercise, we gain more knowledge on exactly what the problem sets are, and therefore we can make the changes very rapidly that way. But the trail boss is our winner. All this is governed under Army Unified Network Council, so we keep track of that. It's myself and the CIO. We govern that. We have a 1 and 2 star before us, and we have a council of colonels before that. And we work with the Maneuver Center of Excellence. We work with our Mission Command Center. We work with all in the unit itself in order to get to an answer or a direction we want to take it.
General Rey, we've covered a lot of different pieces and parts of the G6 and the modernization. I think the last bit I just want to touch upon is the partnerships you have across the Army. I know you work very closely with Army CIO Leo Garciga. I'm sure you work very closely with some of the PEOs. But talk about how this all comes together to achieve this data centricity vision, to achieve these kind of continued modernization efforts.
Yeah, I think it's going to be partnership with the CIO, because one, the CIO is our policy writer. So if we believe that there's a policy that's causing us not to achieve data centricity, we want to identify that, and having the CIO as my partner helps us there. We work closely with the PEO C3N, which is Mr. Kitts, who actually provides the kit and the equipment, that material type solution. But I also work with other parts of our G staff, our G2, when it comes to security, when we're using same things like sensitive but unclassified encrypted, between the G2 and the G3 as my partners, to ensure that we're writing the policies that would allow us to move data across the sensitive but unclassified environment. We need partnership with NSA in order to slap the table on things that we're trying to do within that space as well. So those are partners there. Academia is huge in this whole thing. Industry is another huge partner in the capabilities that we're trying to improve on across the board. And you have to have all services kind of meet us in the middle when it comes to what we're trying to achieve in the data-centric environment. And we have to have our allies on board. And hey, what are we going to share? Because I think more importantly, anything that we do in a data-centric environment really comes down to what is our partners willing to share with us? Is that PLI, their position? Is it their sensor data? Is it their intelligence data? Is it logistics data? So that partnership has to be there in order for us to get to the end state that we're looking for. This is a culture change. This is just a different way of doing business going forward.
All right, there's so much more to talk to. We will continue to follow up with you, but unfortunately, we are out of time for this session of the DoD Modernization Exchange. Let me thank my guest, Lieutenant General Jeth Rey, is the Army Deputy Chief of Staff, G6. Lieutenant General Rey, always a pleasure to catch up. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
I'm Jason Miller, and you're watching Federal News Network. Now let me send you back to the studio for more on the DoD Modernization Exchange.